but the reason has to do with quantum mechanics and just entropy itself. And yes, I actually am saying luck is a trained skill. Now, Helen Hadsell won 8 trips all around the world to Europe, Disneyland, and New York, and once again, all of them were sweepstakes contests, meaning they were basically a paper ballot in a bucket being picked out. She won a house through a sweepstakes contest. Have you ever seen somebody who's so unbelievably lucky and you just wonder, man, everything is going right for them today and everything just seems to be absolutely perfect? And on the other hand, you might even see some people who have the exact opposite thing, where everything is going wrong and nothing at all is going right for them. Some people might say that's just probability, and that is bound to happen because of probability. However, I'm here to argue that isn't true. In fact, I'm here to argue that luck, good and bad, does actually exist. And this is very, very weird. Now, you might say that there is no possible way for luck to exist at all. And that's because everything is deterministic and because of probability, and everything is basically bound and set to happen. And no, but the reason has to do with quantum mechanics and just entropy itself. So how exactly is all of this just related to luck? What does quantum mechanics, entropy, and all of that have to do with luck in the first place? And you're saying luck is a skill, like it's a trained skill? And yes, I actually am saying luck is a trained skill. And I personally myself have trained it a little bit, or I tried to have trained it. I think I did a pretty good job, I think, at it, because in the end, I did manage to do a couple things. So just one of them, as an example, would be hitting a royal flush in a Texas Hold'em game. Now, this is very, very difficult. In fact, the odds of this happening are 649,739 to 1. Now, that is very, very uncommon. In fact, it is so uncommon that the odds of that happening are insanely, insanely low, and they shouldn't be happening that often. That's why the casino games have it like that. But actually, there is an even better example of luck, more specifically somebody that I would probably say is one of the masters of luck, maybe even the master of luck and the highest master of luck. And her name, oddly enough, you might have heard before, and she is known as Helen Hadsell, the contest queen. Now, just to show you an example of how extreme it gets when it comes to quite literally her being a master of luck. Now, Helen Hadsell won 8 trips all around the world to Europe, Disneyland, and New York, and once again, all of them were sweepstakes contests, meaning they were basically a paper ballot in a bucket being picked out. She didn't just stop there, because she won a lot of other things, like an outboard motor, a bicycle for her daughter, tons of kitchen appliances because she was really into those, and tons of furniture. And to top it all off, she went one step further beyond all of that, which was, this is probably one of the biggest examples of it. She won a house through a sweepstakes contest, and not only did she win the house from the sweepstakes contest, she already pretty much pre-planned and pre-selected all of the things that house was going to have, and the house design, and basically where it was going to be located. It is absolutely insane. Now, you could argue that there are actually luckier people than her, and for instance, you could give the example of somebody who avoided death multiple times in a row, or maybe somebody who definitely should have died, but somehow they ended up surviving, and it's a miracle. Or you can even argue the exact opposite side of people being so unbelievably unlucky. And this is what I mean. This is actually all based on quantum events and entropy. Now, to start us off on why luck exists, we need to understand what luck is in the first place, and where does it start from? Well, information is where it starts. Now, what exactly is information in the first place? Well, information is pretty much, it could be anything quite literally. It can be the order of molecules, for example, that you need quite literally to make you, or maybe it could even be the molecules required to make the microphone that I'm speaking into right now. It could even be the order of molecules in a glass of water. Or that information could even just be tons of ones and zeros that are being streamed across the internet to you, and that's how you're getting that information. But not all information is actually equal, because the screen that you're looking at, for instance, basically has tons of these pixels of similar color, which cluster together to make what you're watching right now even comprehensible and sort of make sense out of it. And the only thing for you to discern what's happening is by looking at the pixels, which do change, and that's what's telling you what's exactly happening. And this is important because that means that we can actually compress the information, and we can make that information even smaller. Now, anything that isn't random, like patterns or regularities, can be reduced. And in this case, they can be compressed because they are predictable. And maybe it's, for instance, pixels that you're seeing on the screen. And this is what allows you to shrink that video file down. But what's the remainder of that file once you completely compress it? And what exactly is that? That is what random is. And by random, I mean there is no pattern or regularity that you can discern out of this entire sequence, and it is pretty much just a sequence of information which cannot be compressed even further, and that is what makes it random. Now, science actually does have a way of measuring randomness in this case, and quite literally, there is a term for measuring randomness. Now, you might have actually heard of that term before, and I mentioned it at the very start of this video. And that term is entropy. But just because something has a ton of randomness or too little randomness to it doesn't actually mean that we can make any sense out of what we are seeing. And remember that randomness is information. So let's take the example of too little information that really doesn't make much sense to us, like absolutely tons of zeros that doesn't really tell us anything, or even a cell. Now, you can't see your cells, and this is not something that can make much sense to you. Or maybe even too much information and maximum information. And an example of something with absolutely maximum amount of information could be, for instance, the high frequency trading of stocks in the stock market, which is done by computers. It's not done by humans for a very good reason. Or even just white noise itself. Both of these make absolutely no sense to us because we can't discern anything out of that information, because there's either too little information or too much information. And for us humans, the difference between the maximums and the minimums of the information is actually where we get meaning, because we don't get much meaning out of that high frequency stock trading, and we don't really get much meaning out of all those zeros and ones. And honestly, that meaning or understanding can be anything, and it can be things like the alphabet, it could be video games, it could be sports, it could even be the attractiveness of a face, and even science itself. And science quite literally is just humans compressing information over and over and over again and making it more and more compressed. And that could be anything quite literally. It can be biology, when understanding the mechanisms and how certain cell mechanisms work. It can be chemistry, just understanding and compressing the basic chemical formula of something. Or it could even be physics itself, which has tons of equations and allows us to understand the world through basically tons of these mathematical equations. And once again, math applies to all of these. And as you might have guessed, yes, every single one of those science is basically just very compressed information. And this is where we come to entropy. Now, if everything was always basically in place and always predictable, that means that that information would be constant and the entropy would be constant. But we know that entropy actually isn't constant. In fact, entropy is always increasing, which also means that the information is always increasing. And this is because of the second law of thermodynamics. And we already know that entropy increases with time. This is exactly what luck is. Remember what happens when you compress that video file down as much as you possibly can? What are you left with? Randomness. Well, this is exactly what quantum mechanics is. Randomness, because it's probabilistic. Because the theory itself has something known as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which pretty much states that an electron cannot be predicted with absolute certainty because you can only calculate the probabilities of where you might find that electron, and it isn't even with absolute certainty because, once again, quantum mechanics is probabilistic. Now, because of this, once we actually find that electron's specific location, we have gained information, or in this case, we have gained entropy. So because of these electrons pretty much always creating new information from these very small events, that is exactly where entropy is being made. And take a guess. Where do you think some of those quantum events can be influenced? That's right. The human brain itself. Now, there's actually already plenty of information which shows that the human brain does influence quantum events. And because of that, quantum mechanics, and in this case, randomness itself, can be affected by the human brain. Now, if you found this video interesting and you're interested in how to train your luck exactly, because you found this stuff really cool and you're sort of interested in how exactly does this work and all that stuff, then let me know in the comments below. And if the video gets enough likes, and if there's a certain comment that is particularly has absolutely tons of likes, and if the video actually gets enough views as well, then I'll make another video explaining how exactly you can train your luck, which, yes, I do believe luck is a skill, and it's because it's one that I've trained on my own, and I've sort of seen the results with my own eyes. Now, you can view this as luck, or you can just view this as manifestation. There's like a lot of ways to explain what exactly this is. I personally just view this as a quantum event, and it's basically just a randomness thing, and yeah, it all basically comes down to quantum mechanics. So if you're really interested in that, then let me know. Thanks again for watching. If you found the video helpful and very interesting, then please like, subscribe, share, and comment down below, because it really does help the video grow. And if you want to see my videos ahead of time, as well as support me personally and support the channel grow, then please click the join button down below, where you can see my videos ahead of time, as well as support me personally at the same time. So once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.